welcome to our Board of Education to an exciting update on our strategic plan. This is phase 2, and it's the winding down of our first year under the second phase, the first year of a 5-year plan. For those of us who are just joining us tonight, part of our process in Pleasantville regarding our strategic plan is to make a commitment to the work at the beginning of the year. The administrative team meets as a group. We take a look at the 5-year strategic plan. We look at all the action plans, and we put forth a commitment to, we think we're going to be able to work on these and put them into operation, try to put forth movement forward, progress towards each of these action plans. And tonight is the night where we report back on how successful were we? Did we encounter new information or other ideas that might make us to change a little bit on this? Or were there areas that are going to just take longer than what we had done before in the past? So just as a review for everyone, a strategic plan is a map. It is a guide. It is a process to move our school district, our school organization forward in a meaningful and deliberate and systemic and strategic way. It starts with a series of beliefs, core, that were put together by over 100 community members, staff, and teachers and administrators, focused on a core mission as to who we are as an educational community. And then we created a series of objectives. Objectives are measurable targets, measurable goals, measurable steps that the Board of Education puts together in a budget that helps us move towards those beliefs and mission statement of our strategic plan. Those objectives are our targets, and they're non-negotiable. But how do we get there? Well, we create a series of strategies. Strategies are strategic steps towards those targets, and each one of those strategies has a series of action plans that groups and committees got together over a series of several months. And they said, this is an idea, this is a thought, this is what we did in our research that could help us accomplish those strategies. So just as a brief overview, particularly during this time in our history as a nation, I think it's really important that we highlight some of these. Here in Pleasantville, we committed to, in the first plan, and now we believe that respectful is the foundation for a caring and vibrant community. And personal responsibility is essential to a healthy society. Mindful change is the catalyst for learning, growth, and opportunity, because change is inevitable. Curiosity drives critical thinking, self-fulfillment, and innovation. One's passions to create, dream, learn, and persevere results in joy. Self-awareness demands reflection. Reflection, thinking about what is it I don't know but need to know? What is it I need to learn? How do I grow? Freedom of choice is essential to the pursuit of new ideas. Embracing individuality maximizes human potential. The power of advocacy is through one's own voice, and integrity requires the courage to stand up for what's right, even if one stands alone. And a sense of family is fundamental to a thriving community. I am just so proud of our community for developing those beliefs when we first stepped on this journey, and we recommitted to them when we started phase 2. All right, our mission here, the mission of Pleasantville Union Free School District, it's a pathway to unique opportunities inspired by valued traditions. It is to empower all students to thrive as lifelong learners, dynamic thinkers, and compassionate contributing citizens through a learning community, because that's what the school district is, distinguished by 4 things: a rich, differentiated academic programs in which depth of understanding, creativity, and critical thinking flourish, a safe, supportive environment of respect and collaboration, exploration of individual passions and celebrations of accomplishments, leadership, and service. I think if you take a look at the front, again, steps of the high school where it says enter to learn, go forth to serve, or even if you reflect upon what Joe Wallace said earlier in the evening, so many of these things just resonate through our work today. And involved with this are certain key objectives. And again, objectives, you just keep in mind what we mean by these. These are the non-negotiables. These are the things that are supported through our budget, and these are our targets that each strategy wants to or must accomplish. Each student will excel in a personally challenging, rigorous academic course of study. Each student will acquire an educational foundation enabling the pursuit of individual passions, whether it's in the arts, athletics, or academics. Each student will embody strength of character as a contributing member of society, so needed today. And each student will pursue a life of wholeness, purpose, and balance, right? You hear that, that's our SEL commitment, right? So those are our strategic objectives. And again, these are those bold resolutions, steps, the non-negotiables that dedicate our resources, energies, and to our system to achieve the extraordinary as expressed in the mission and objectives of our school district, right? All right, so in phase 2, as similar to phase 1, we commit to a 5-year plan. The Board of Education adopts the mission, beliefs, objectives, and strategies. And then each of the strategies has a series of action plans. Those are recommendations from teams to the steering committee to help operationalize these strategies. We review them each year. We present in the fall to what a commitment we can do using the action plans as a reference. And certain action plans will require approval in the annual budget process because finances are approved and put forth by the Board of Education. We are mindful of supporting organizational capacity and intentionality of our work. And of course, we had some unusual funding issues last year and in the beginning of this year, but we were delighted, which I'll talk about later, about certain funding opportunities that have come through from the federal government. Okay, so these are our 6 strategies, our 6 frames for our work. We adopted a strategy, a target in leadership, to hire, develop, and retain an increasingly diverse group of school professionals who commit to continued learning, and development and responsive pedagogy to promote a dynamic, inspiring environment of acceptance and diversity of thought. Curriculum, adapt curriculum that promotes differentiated instruction while empowering and inspiring students to help them be actively engaged and to be future ready. Wellness, again, this clear resonating focus on a school-wide environment that keeps at its focus social emotional learning and physical wellness, because we believe that's an important for a culture of engaged citizenship and inclusivity. Communication to engage homeschool and community that involves a robust dialogue and establishes essential linkages. Infrastructure and resources, super important. The physical plant, the most important of this village and the school community's facilities are our buildings. And we want to make sure that they are safe, that they are in a collaborative and flexible environments for students and staff to engage and to learn. And as a school community, we will continue to work towards developing new and strengthen current partnerships among the school and community for one purpose: to expand learning opportunities for our students. Okay. So in the beginning of this school year, we set out to, we were quite ambitious again. We looked at 5 different action plans under the leadership strategy. Action plan 1, which talked about how do we do outreach efforts and have direct conversations with colleges and SED on certification pathways to do an increasingly diverse group of school professionals, to increase diversity of staff. So we have reached out. I actually joined 2 steering committees, one through a college upstate New York and another one here locally, to include different certification pathways to encourage more folks and individuals to enter into the field of education, and to do so in a way that encourages diversity and different faces and voices to be part of the conversation. And I know that this year, when our team was interviewing for new staff members, they certainly reached out to different colleges. We posted on different sites just to encourage a diverse group of applicants in our pool. And we will continue to do that work. Action Plan 2, professional development efforts this year. 2 big focuses, diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and technology. So I would just allude, because I'd like this to be a little bit more of a conversation. If anyone on my team here tonight want to chime in and talk about the PD efforts about around diversity, equity, and inclusivity and technology, that would be great.
Mary, I'll jump in, because over the weekend, over the Memorial Day weekend, I'm the administrator of a new professional development company that we joined, Clarity, and we offered to all the teachers at in the district the opportunity to take a self-paced workshop. So if you think about the year that we've had, and all the learning that we've done and all the new learning that we've done, we thought as a professional development group that this would be a great opportunity for people to take courses that they could take at their own time and at their own pace. Just over the Memorial Day weekend, I had 29 emails of completions of those workshops from different people throughout the district. And I just wanted to share some of the titles of it. So teachers in the Bedford Road School all were participating in vernacular in the 21st century. We wanted to do one workshop. In the middle school and the high school, teachers had choices, and some of their choices were cultural and instructional considerations for ELL learners, teaching outside the norm, choosing diverse literature to increase reading achievement, teaching and developing reading strategies with diverse literature. I love this one, communication of student progress, embedding SEL practice into your classroom. So that's just a snippet of what's still happening with 19 days left of school. Teachers are still learning and participating in professional development. So I was just really proud. My whole email just blew up. It usually just goes to one place where I can look. It went wacky this weekend, but it was just wonderful to see the efforts of the teachers on Memorial Day weekend.
Right. So
Mary, I just want to say too, Peggy, thank you for saying that. And Mary, you know this, but I think the board should know, is what's really nice about this platform, Clarity, is that as administrators, we can kind of see what the needs are within our building and ask them to customize an asynchronous professional development opportunity for teachers. So they could put together a customized plan, whether it be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, kind of whatever we feel the need is based on any topic that we choose. Talking with some of their architects, we can specifically ask for a program, and they'll be more than willing to put it together in pretty short order, which I think is a really, really cool thing, because it allows you to really kind of go throughout the year, and as you see fit, incorporate some PD that is appropriate for your individual school building, which is really nice.
Another positive outcome of the pandemic, I don't know that we would have ever ventured down the road of asynchronous PD, self-paced.
yeah.
And it's turned out to be very beneficial when you can start and stop in the midst of your crazy life and really take your time to learn.
And we were intentional at the high school in regards to giving folks some choice. We feel like that's consistent with what we know about adult learning theory, and what we plan on doing when we get back to school, believe it or not, in August. It's going to happen quick. We're looking forward to jigsawing at the high school level, folks who engaged in different topics of study and having share outs, with their colleagues. So it's going to be a powerful opportunity for folks to share what they've learned with their teammates.
So we have in our teachers contract these extended days of professional learning and growth. And Our Teachers Association really appreciated this professional approach, whereas we provided the asynchronous tool based upon our strategic plan goals, found a platform that could deliver it, and there's been a great deal of engagement on this tool in this targeted area. So I want to thank the team for working on this, and the Professional Development Committee, of which Peggy sits on as the administrative liaison, that approved the work in this area. So I want to thank the teachers for their work too. It's been excellent. And also this year too, and we'll go up for a moment, the professional growth from frontline. I remember Emily telling me 3 or 4 years ago, like, Mary, you got to find a way like kind of streamline so we can search and look at, and we're using it now. Absolutely. It was placed in the strategic plan. It's a tool. We can upload all the CTL hours that the teachers need now for their certification. That's going to be reviewed by the curriculum coordinators this year. There's a maintenance criteria associated with all of that, so we can issue reports and different items with that as we see fit. Okay. Then in addition to that, we started the fall with the ADL. We had a team attend professional development sessions with the Leadership Academy. And now in the spring, they were a little late getting there because of the demand. We have had a great partnership with the Metro Center, and the administrative team will be meeting for our 3rd professional development session with the Metro Center next week. And I think also next week, the board has their PD session with the Metro Center. So very exciting work. And anyone else on the team want to chime in on any of these items?
Well, I could say it wasn't 48 hours after our first training session with the Metro Center that I was able to put some of their coaching in work, with members of the faculty. So, our time with Natalie has certainly been very, very beneficial. I feel like it's had an immediate impact, on, our work with teachers in the building, in that coaching role. And I'm looking forward. I know Natalie's kind of moving on, but they've got a great plan, going forward at the Metro Center. So I'm really excited about this next layer of work that we'll do with them that will include members of the community as well.
Right. And that's, as we go through the next series of slides about community outreach, community committees, it's the feedback and information we get through our partnerships that causes us to look at our trajectory and have a more informed research-based approach to the work. Under Action Plan 4, there really was a strong need and desire to increase Aide's training on Superintendent's Conference Day, and boy, have we done that. So I don't know, Brooke, if you want to chime in a little bit about the type of work that does take place on those Superintendent's Conference Days, and then on November 3rd for a real critical members of our staff, our aides who work in classrooms with students with disabilities, and or often on the front line in our offices, or when we see them outside engaging with kids on the playground.
Mary, I can take this.
Oh, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, of course. So our professional development opportunities are designed to, strengthen the working relationships between our teachers and teacher aides, and this is an area that we take very seriously. The role of the teacher aide varies, as you can imagine, with all of our special programs, of course, and it includes working to support students with very complex and challenging behaviors. In surveying our teacher aides, which is something that we've actually started to do, they've reported that they sometimes feel underprepared, for the behavior supports involved in their role. So they have requested PD that is more hands-on, as opposed to maybe, watching a video or sitting in a workshop. And, by doing this, it allows them to be able to implement certain strategies within the classroom setting. So we do focus on that professional development being interactive, where they can practice those skills. and receive feedback from trainers and coaches who just so happen to be our own qualified teachers and clinical staff. This is very unique for us. We have partnered with groups such as the Crisis Prevention Institute and cognitive behavior consultants to get our own staff certified so that they can deliver this behavioral support training to our teacher aides. And that's been very beneficial for us.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. All right, so the other action plan that we looked at was the goal of trying to figure out some way of assessing school climate, and an approach we took this year, it was born out of the pandemic, was to send out multiple levels of surveys and or questionnaires to our staff. Certainly you heard Mr. Iorio talk about how we surveyed our aides and tried to address their learning needs through this. And throughout different stages of the pandemic, the Bedford Road School, middle school and high school surveyed families and students, and that also helped us inform in terms of where we were targeting our interventions when we came back in full. So would anyone else from the team like to chime in a little bit around that work?
I'm happy to talk a little bit about what we've done. So this was one aspect that we felt was very important and very timely as we transitioned into the beginning of this year, knowing that everyone experienced the pandemic last spring in a lot of different ways. We surveyed our parents, our students, and our faculty multiple times throughout the year, one prior to coming into the building, another a little bit midway through the year, and then also prior to full reentry, because we wanted to get a full understanding on a deeper level from our individual students' perspectives, from our parents' perspectives, and from our staff's perspectives on who was struggling, who needed support, so we could then target that intervention through our child study teams. And taking this holistic approach was really important for us. And one that we really feel from feedback that we've received from students, from families, and from our faculty that has made really large strides. So this is something that this approach is one where we would definitely continue in future years.
At the elementary school, in addition to some of the surveys that were sent out, we actually, before we had our reopening of school meeting in the summer, as well as planning for the full return in the spring, we sent out an opportunity for parents to submit questions beforehand. And although our original intention of that was to help inform the presentation we were going to give, what we actually gained through that experience was feedback from the parents about where their thoughts were around their children being in school and what some of their feelings were. So it did end up being very helpful for us to craft our presentations, but it gave us so much more information. And it's definitely a practice that we want to continue with going forward.
We had that same experience at the high school, and a lot like I believe Dan spoke about earlier when he mentioned the cognitive behavioral consultants. You know, they worked closely with our staff in the fall around universal classroom training. So we've been able to take a lot of the DBT work that we might, or the Steps A work that we might use, you know, in our 9th grade curriculum, and create a advisory model in our PE classes. And we were able to work with students throughout the year. We had over 15 meetings, you know, where we were engaging in small group discussion, garnering feedback, and then along the lines that Rachel talked about, really operationalizing that so that we could best support students and families.
Mm-hmm. And then a conversation to have as we move into the fall is, do we want to, obviously we want to continue with this level of outreach and surveys and information that we're getting individually, but also is there a thought of, is there a tool out there, whether it's Panorama or Insight or Thought Exchange, as to how we have a more comprehensive approach towards school climate assessments. We had great hopes on the Haas survey, and more about that later, and we were you know, very much disappointed in how that played out, for the school climate piece. But it's something for us to explore and think about as we move into the 21-22 school year.
Mary, I just want to give Sue Lyden, our 8th grade guidance counselor, a quick shout out here. She's met with every single 8th grader this year about their transition from middle school to high school, which is no small feat. 132 8th graders, so 132 individual meetings, and pushes into all 8th grade classrooms at least once a quarter with an advisory model, and often kind of tag teams that with Mary Ann Flatley. So just a quick shout out to Sue, because that's an incredibly heavy lift, and I just don't want it to go unnoticed.
Oh, thank you, Don. And I'm glad you mentioned the fact, though, that that advisory model is very labor intensive. So we're very grateful to the partnership we have with Pleasantville Strong for the funding we received through that, and then from the commitment from our counseling staff to do the work. Great. All right, Veronica, next slide. Thank you. Okay, for curriculum. Again, to encourage a curriculum that promotes differentiated instruction, empowering and inspiring students to be actively engaged in their education. There were a number of action plans we felt that would be really helpful to our work this year. A really big one, and right out of the gate, we were sorry it took so late in the year, but Tri-States was, had certainly needed flexibility and adjustment based upon the pandemic, but we did apply for membership, and the focus areas of our study were around English language arts and particularly writing, and as well as what are some models for supporting curriculum, K-12 individually and within the buildings. What structures out there are the best research-based approaches towards helping and supporting curriculum at the building level, amongst and between the grades, and then definitely as we transition from school to school. So Tri-States voted in May to accept our membership, and we are delighted. And during this transition process, we were also invited. I know I will be attending this week a superintendent's only study group hosted by Tri-States, and they do now have these study groups for the different levels of our administrative team, and they've all received invitations to them. And we get our weekly reading from Tri-State. So it's a wonderful organization to help build and support organizational growth and capacity. And then also we were thrilled to be able to join the Metro Center. We had hoped that they would have been able to accept our membership a little bit earlier, but again, the pandemic certainly had certain issues around their level of capacity to support the work, but they did engage with us in the spring. And as I mentioned, we will be having our 3rd PD session with them this week. They have wonderful models for rolling out what they call trajectories for engagement, for community, for teachers, for board members, how to hold community forums, how to run a curricular audit when you're ready to do that. The resources are fantastic. So I encourage the board, when you meet with them next week, to ask lots of questions. It's just been a very powerful and amazing onboarding ramp with Metro Center. And clearly their work and their philosophies, as well as the work we're doing with through our own professional organizations with the state education department around the new curriculum that they put out about inclusivity. We are refocusing on what do we want that curriculum and climate committee to look like. These are, like I said, professional organizations that have done this work for quite a while, and they are certainly helping us support what those structures will look like when we launch these then in the fall. We are fortunate. I want to thank the board and the community for their support, that we have now individuals that have been appointed to do our diversity, equity, and inclusivity work. They have been working on key celebrations. They've been reviewing the SED document, and they are having conversations with different departments and staff members. And last night they attended the community DEI meeting group. And lastly, the action plan under inquiry. We are certainly expanding our inquiry-based learning initiatives via science research and humanities research as well. So would anyone on the team like to add something additional or specific around these action plans?
I know at the high school level, particularly in literature, we are looking at increasing the number of voices that we have, both in our larger works, the novels, and poetry and short stories. So, we did that work across the grade levels this year. We're interested in continuing it. There's a novel that we're looking at next year called Just Mercy that we might be looking at for our 11th grade. So it's certainly exciting work, and it's work that our teachers are really invested in. And I think the students are going to respond well because the literature that we're looking at is excellent. So, great opportunities to really use that literature as a vehicle to teach skills and knowledge and themes. And luckily, we've got some great options. So we're really excited about this next step of the high school.
I could say at the middle school, just some different units that are relatively new, but have really taken off based on teacher, as Joe mentioned, teacher buy-in, teacher excitement, teacher enthusiasm around this work. I know that we're all very much looking forward to working with the DEI coordinators as well. A couple examples just to provide the community and the board would be Memoirs of Diversity unit in 8th grade ELA. And 8th grade is working on a social action project where students are researching and constructing action plans for issues that they deem important. You can imagine how passionate our students are about those. Specifically in ELA, as I mentioned, the Memoirs of Diversity, different points of view are provided, ranging from refugee stories to Olympic athletes, reading to gain empathy, gaining understanding of different experiences, all authors of color and set in the 20th or 21st century. So pretty modern, pretty relevant for our students. And then our students have the opportunity to write a piece mirrored after what they read about events in their own life that have led them to learn about themselves and the world around them. So these are some things that have not obviously taken place just this year, that have been some time coming over the last few years. But a lot of this work really kind of propelled us into action. Again, very much looking forward to kind of taking all of our grades to the next level. And I think offering choice is critical. As Joe mentioned about adult learning theory, for our students as well, we want to offer choices, offer different literature that they're interested in, and amplify those voices of people of color. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity to do so.
At BRS, we've grounded a lot of our work this year in literature that we've shared out with different grade levels. So an example of that is with our 3rd and 4th grade class, we used the book The Day You Begin. And every student in 3rd and 4th grade had an opportunity to read the book, engage in discussion around that. And there's been several of these opportunities throughout the year, and it's built up to our homeschool connection projects. And all of these projects, this was done in conjunction with our parent DEI committee and with the help of Jen Pico and Kim Shulman, our amazing curriculum coordinators. And the projects are all centered around culture and identity or family, and an opportunity within each grade level looks a bit different. And their student choice, and it begins in school. It's grounded in a book that has been identified for each grade level and a lesson that they engage in around these topics in class, and then an opportunity to go home, work on this, ask questions with your family, learn more about your family, your culture, come back, and then share it out with your class. And that's currently going on right now.
So I certainly think, though, you can hear from what the administrators are sharing that the SED document on culturally responsive and sustaining education, the framework is resonating through this work. That guide, when it came out, the Metro Center actually uses it heavily in their work with us. So we are on a journey, and I really appreciate the professional partnership and the support from the community and the board as we engage in this important work. Okay. And the other little piece that came up that we looked on and reflected on under curriculum was the action plan on a portrait of a graduate. So for those of you who profile of a graduate, for those of you who might be aware of, what the profile of a graduate evolves around, it involves around having a statement as a school district about what your mission is and what are the attributes associated with that. And a lot of the foundational work for this is really coming from our strategic plan. As you can see, we here in Pleasantville, by adopting a very inclusive model regarding our mission, and then really looking at what each graduate would embody in terms of what they need to move on to the next stage of their life, because we want all of our graduates to be engaged, motivated, prepared, and authentic. So this is our foundational work as we engage in this. And I'm really delighted to hear, I think, Jill, I think you shared some information with us recently too, that the State Education Department is working towards those different expressions of graduation and different pathways, which I think will make it certainly more engaging, authentic, and prepared, and create different levels of motivation for our students here in the state of New York, not just in Pleasantville. But it's exciting work, and I know it's part of the topic of conversation with many of our professional organizations. So to be continued, and the State Education Department is actively involved in this process as well. So the next, all right, next strategy, the strategy on wellness. And I really do, I have to go back to Pleasantville Strong. So much, I've learned so much about social emotional learning. I've learned so much about physical wellness. We as a school district have learned a great deal through the work and the engagement with Pleasantville Strong. We have a steering committee meeting tomorrow. So the action plans that we look to do this year under wellness, first of all, we put forth our Haas survey, and it had two parts to it. The first, that stands for High Achieving Schools Survey. It was an attempt on that we believed would be a really interesting tool to help measure what we needed to know and gain insight into some of our student work. We also had to, for Pleasantville Strong, because it's based on a grant every 2 years, we do need to do a survey on perception of peer and parental disapproval, and do a survey on tobacco and marijuana. So we had to roll out a part 1 of the survey, which is required for our Pleasantville Strong grant. And what we can share about that, and if we have been discussing it at coalition meetings, is that the data basically shows improvement over the last time we did do a survey on perception of peer and parental approval. So it's really good news along those lines. And again, I put that out as a teaser to please come to a Pleasantville Strong coalition meeting to learn more information about that. However, the second part of this, and Shane can certainly, as our leader of Pleasantville Strong, can chime in here, but we were very much disappointed with the information that we got for the school section. Not helpful. The N were very, very low. They actually had no normative data. There was only one public school involved. Some of the questions were not broken down by grade level. There was contradictory data. According to our psychologist, Laura Moore, who spent a lot of time digging into this, the data was all over the place. There was no algorithm to check for false answers. So, and the people that do put together the Haas survey have promised us that late this spring, they will renorm the data. They are using certain other tools this spring. So we're being told, well, they'll come back and renorm the information for us. So stay tuned, more to be learned about that. Right? Action Plan 3, we are doing our digital citizen.
Mary, I'll just jump in really quickly.
Oh, thank
just
you.
to say,
Thank you.
besides everything you mentioned, which is 100% accurate, we were the only school to do it in the fall, right in the middle of COVID. And that makes a difference too, because there's literally no one to compare us to.
No one. And they gained indicators like things like code calling, like calling on kids in class. Certain students felt over Zoom that was insensitive of teachers, but yet calling on kids in class is a real instructional strategy. And they had no way of monitoring that, filtering that, adjusting for that. So clearly we want to understand the information much better, having spent now 3 hours looking at it. But I can't wait to hear what they're going to do late spring when they renorm this information for us. Here's hoping we do get meaningful meaning we get data that helps us inform and make change. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Right. So action plan number 3, the digital citizen curriculum with common sense media. Cameron, or would you like to speak a little bit to that, please?
Sure, I can just touch on it real quickly. It's something that has continued to grow, particularly this year. I don't think there's too much.
I can't really hear Cameron. Can anybody else?
I know. It is the night of technology problems, that's for sure.
Cameron, I can talk a little bit about the middle school if you want.
Thank you.
This is something that we really enjoy doing at the middle school, and our students, obviously, with the technology that they receive from the school and being as into it as they are, especially in those ages, dive right in, and they have a ton of different questions that they ask throughout lessons. So students receive this common sense media curriculum and digital citizenship curriculum within the STEAM classes throughout every grade level. And they receive 6 scripted lessons throughout each of those classes within each grade. And some of the different topics that they discuss is just the power of their digital footprint, who they are online, raising awareness to phishing, which that could be for any grade level, or adults as well. It's such a very common area. And just understanding who they are and how they utilize, whether it's being on the internet, navigating the internet, how to understand and identify what's real and what isn't, and source their material on the internet is so very important. So these are classes that are fun. They're highly engaging and very energetic when students start diving into some of these lessons, and we really enjoy the conversations that come out of them.
Right. Thank you, Adam. And that was a very important, actually, I remember that action committee, digital citizenship was really a very strong goal of that action team. So to have the common sense curriculum with us is a really great outcome of that committee. So, and I'm glad it's going well. So social emotional learning work. You've heard this many times, and it resonates actually through whether it's our PE classes, our health classes, through different advisory groups, push-in programs. We certainly are working on our DBT model, our Steps A, and we did a little bit with Second Step, but Rachel, we weren't so pleased with the lessons there. We felt they didn't go deep enough, right?
So we kind of did a pilot and rolled it out in 1st and 2nd grade this year. The lessons, I'd say, met a need, but one of the opportunities I think that came through this year in some of our DEI work is really how can we marry the idea of SEL and some of the work that we're doing in DEI. And we found a fabulous book it's called the ADL Anti-Bias Curriculum, and it's written at an elementary level for students in kindergarten through 5th grade. And so from the work that we did in Second Step, there's a lot of overlap within there too, and we're looking forward to kind of marrying the two as we move forward to support our students.
Right. So isn't that, again, as I said in the beginning, last year when we were looking at this, we want to commit to this, but then we have learned from our partnership with the ADL and with the Metro Center that, there are better tools, better approaches, and clearly something in isolation on social emotional learning really does need to be part of our diversity, equity, and inclusivity work, because they are hand in hand. An inclusive environment is one that supports the social emotional learning of all kids. So I'm glad we were able to pivot a little bit there and bring in tools that we feel really meet the goals of our strategic plan in a more meaningful way.
And Mary, our Friends Way, our psychology team will still, they've always used Second Step. They will continue to use Second Step in small group meetings, which has been much more, I think, successful in that setting. That it hasn't not been successful. Rachel and I've been teaching the lessons, but I don't know if it's just elementary teaching. We just started to recreate the whole lesson and said we could do this better in a different way.
Right.
But we will continue to use what we have purchased.
So it does look like, the Steps A program is 33 very detailed research-based lessons, and trying to mirror that at the elementary level. Of course, our psychologists are able to do that because that's who they are, but we were looking for a similar product for all kids and teachers to use in the classroom.
Right.
Thank you. We are absolutely thrilled this year to, first of all, to have Shane as the new leader of Pleasantville Strong. Laura Moore is doing a fantastic job as our new coordinator. And we have parent representation on the steering committee. So Shane, you want to highlight some of that work for us?
Okay. Well, Pleasantville Strong, first of all, stands for Safe Teens, Real Opportunities, New Goals. And it came out of the strategic plan because of John Muller, who was on the Health and Wellness Committee of the first strategic plan. 7 years ago, we started, and we got a federal grant. And we had the first 5-year process. And now we're in the second year, the second 5 years. And what we've been able to do is make it more and more sustainable by adding more and more of the things that Strong used to cover actually into the school budget, which has allowed us to do more things. So originally we were just in the high school and working with high school students. And now we've been able to push down into the middle school and now start even earlier in the elementary school, obviously doing age appropriate programming. So that, and we've also been able, besides just talking about drug and alcohol prevention and giving kids information to make good choices, we've been able to talk about wellness and other preventative things, whether it be mental health or physical health. So, I think it's been a great program. We've been able to accomplish a lot of things, and by getting more parents involved, especially at the younger student level, I think it's really, really important, because there seems to be a sense with parents that, oh, we don't need to talk about that yet. We don't need to talk about that yet. And all of a sudden, you need to talk about it. And it's just really important to give students the right language, the right understanding, the right ideas to start thinking about peer pressure and all those things when they're younger. And then when they're old enough really to start talking about substance abuse and what that looks like. Understand, have some of the tools already to be able to deal with peer pressure. One of the things that I found most interesting is peer pressure is also difficult for parents. And we try and provide resources to parents who think, gee, I don't want to be that person who has to make the phone call to say, oh, you're out past curfew, or I don't want to be the person. So it's been a very interesting experience. Laura's done a great job, Nicole before her, in terms of getting information, and a lot of information to parents and to students. Marianne, as a counselor in the school, has been wonderful. It's great that we've added someone who's confidential to the students, so they can go and talk to her without fear of it kind of getting out there. Parents also have a resource to call if they have confidential information and conversations they want to have. So I think the program's been great. We're trying to continue to add sustainability. And so we're looking this year to convert Pleasantville Strong into also a not-for-profit. So when the grant ends 4 years from now, we have continued sustainability. So I've been very happy and very proud to be a part of it. I've got to meet a lot of people, work with a lot of people. There's some great presentations. We just had one on marijuana, what you need to know. And if you go to pleasantvillestrong.org, once again, that's pleasantvillestrong.org, you can find some of the resources there that might be helpful. And you can always reach out to Marianne Flatley. You can always reach out to our coordinator. She has an email address, at pleasantville-ny.gov. That's pvillestrong@pleasantville-ny.gov for more information. Oh, and also we're always looking for volunteers. So if people are interested, feel free to reach out to any one of us. Reach out to Mary, reach out to Marianne Flatley, reach out to Laura Moore, reach out to me, reach out to Andy Bush. These are all people involved.
We're delighted. Thank you. Thank you, Shane. And again, we actually have our counseling staff at different moments who joins our steering committee. So it's important.
The principals are involved, the assistant principals are involved, and they're wonderful to give and dedicate as much time as they do and come to meetings and talk about, different programming. It's been great. It's been a real team effort and a real team approach, and I appreciate all of it. And so does the
Thank you,
community.
Shane. Thank
And
you.
Mary, it's Andy Bush is the VRS parent representative this year
Right.
and going forward.
Yeah, she's now on the steering committee.
Right. Yep. All right. All right. Thank you, Veronica. All right. Strategy for communication. Engage the homeschool and community through communications that enable a robust dialogue and build linkages. So this year, we made a strong commitment to expanding the superintendent's communications committee membership. So we have, and they're well attended. We have our representatives from all of our parent organizations who attend our meetings, and they've been giving us feedback. I have a variety of board members that rotate in and off on that committee as well too. And I know you've heard a lot of the different recommendations, and we're happy to note that our K-12 alert system, which was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we had different options for non-English speakers. They just rolled out recently this spring that they will also include the same option that School Messenger includes. So that's really important. And our communications committee have been giving us perspectives on what to do, what do we like about the website. At the last meeting, we did presentations on different service providers, what we liked, what we didn't like, and clearly, Shane, Emily, or Jill, you can chime in here about the different work we're taking on through that committee. Mm-hmm. It was pretty lengthy, the last meeting. We were at for about 3 hours on all these options.
Right. Well, it's interesting how the website providers have changed over the years. We looked at changing the website provider several years ago, and then our provider updated enough to maintain, and now more changes are in need, and it's a time-consuming and careful process before jumping ship, because it's a big undertaking. So I'm glad that Cameron is there and Julie to carefully analyze and review all of the different options that we have out there.
Right, definitely. Cameron and Julie did a lot of work before our last meeting to present this, and we have a committee member, Joan Jacobson, who's a professional in technology, and her point is always make sure you've got the personnel to staff all of this.
Right.
It reminds us how at times it's the stuff that occurs in the back end that really makes it all work, and we've got to make sure that we have support to do that type of work.
Exactly.
Right. Lastly we needed to implement a learning management system. Seesaw and Schoology were the two that we adopted in the beginning of the year. They are the two that we put a lot of professional development behind. We have support staff now in all 3 buildings to help make that work. And it is part of our TLI work with our Regional Information Center. So I want to thank Cameron again and the Rick for all their help and support for making these platforms really essential tools for our work this year. Okay. Infrastructure and resources. So, you know, a picture tells a story, and it was very important that we maximize as part of our this strategy, our facilities, equipment to make the environment safe, collaborative, and flexible for all students and staff. Safe, collaborative, and flexible. And you can see here some quick pictures of our new security entrances, our vestibule, our welcome vestibule at the Bedford Road School and at the middle school mirror that type of entry system that we have at the high school. And I'm in and out of those areas all the time. They are working out just great. They add a layer of, not only do they add a layer of security, but they add a layer of professionalism, efficiency. There's a greeter there. I want to thank Mr. Chamberlain and Mr. Whipple for all your hard work in making this happen, but we are just thrilled with that. And again, we have shelter-in-place hardware in our middle school right now that have been all part of our safety drills. And under Action Plan 6, which was also a green initiative, was to kind of reduce our footprint, to reduce energy usage. And we completed a major high school LED lighting project this year. So again, I want to thank Tim and Steve for their leadership in this area. Okay. And strategy number 6, the last one, partnerships. We will develop new and strengthen current partnerships to expand learning opportunities. So one of the key areas that we felt was essential for us to do that was to engage with a collaborative that does this type of work in a research-based manner and involves high-achieving schools in Westchester, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So we will be joining Tri-States in the fall as they revamp up their visits to different school districts. We already now do that virtually through different meetings, but this is a really important part of our work this year. So we were accepted, they accepted our membership, and we're excited to hear and to learn and to grow through that. Within and across our schools, though, we have a couple of different highlights as to how we operationalize that this year. So if I would, the 8th grade read alouds with our K students and our high school, middle school student ambassadors. So my principals want to take it away and give a little bit of a highlight as to what that work looks like.
I could talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that our 8th grade students have had this year. Sue Leiden offered as a community service opportunity for some of our 8th graders to do some unique things. One of those things was a read aloud for K students. It's not live per se, but some of our students videoed themselves reading stories, and those stories, or I should say those recordings, were then sent to kindergarten teachers like a Val Reish, who would then be able to play those in their classrooms for their kindergarten students. That was just one unique opportunity that we looked to doing this year that really was a hit. Some of our 8th grade kids really enjoyed doing that, especially many have siblings at the elementary school. Just today, we had some high school students come over with Marianne Flatley, part of the Sources of Strength group, to talk about high school and that transition for middle school students, specifically 8th graders. So in middle school, in 8th grade flex classes, our middle school students asked, what are some differences about the middle school to the high school? In the middle school, our grades are somewhat pure. There's not a ton of interaction unless they're playing a sport or they're in the play or things of that nature with other grades, because each grade level has their own lunch. Each grade level has a grade specific PE and things of that nature. Where at the high school, lunches are mixed grades, PE is mixed grades, certain electives and things of that nature. So the high school students were very professional, and they did a really nice job answering many of those questions that our 8th graders had, and there were many. So it's really nice. And even tonight, with the creative writing contest. You see 11th grade judges judging middle school pieces, which isn't new per se, but these are just really nice opportunities for students, both at, in different buildings to connect and work with one another. So those are just a few examples.
I'll go in a different direction. We recently, last week, we had our class of 2021 connect with a panel of alumni to discuss the transition from college to post-secondary life. It was great to see some of those students again. They're people I haven't seen in 1 or 2 years, and they talked about their, obviously different college experience this fall. Our students had great questions for them about what that transition was like. And, I'm thinking about Amber and some of the students that we saw, Carlos de Jesus, familiar faces who have had, a different start to their collegiate studies, but they were able to share really valuable insights with our students. So it was really nice to have those students come back and connect with our current seniors and talk about their experience. And our students had a lot of questions. They certainly did. So it was a really nice night for them.
Great, so thank you. And the last piece here, I want to turn it over to our Bedford Road School. We already spoke a little bit about the expanded communications committee, because that is truly a partnership. But we're looking to do not only to have Andy Bush, our member of the Bedford Road School parent group, to be on the steering committee for Pleasantville Strong, but we're also looking to expand program at the elementary school next year. And Peggy and Rachel have thoughts about incoming K Family Buddies program.
I think, Shane, you very eloquently put it before, and that some of the work that Pleasantville Strong is doing is helping to prepare to have these conversations before it's time to have the conversation, and how do we lay some of the groundwork. So we're really looking forward to a partnership with them of how, as educators, can we begin to have conversations around making good choices, what's healthy for our body. And we began talking with Laura, and we're really looking forward to expanding that come the next school year. And as Mary also shared, we are beginning our buddy families for our incoming kindergarten families next year. So I think at some point in all of our lives, we can relate to beginning something new, and the butterflies that are associated with that, whether it be because you are brand new to a community or you've never had a child enter public school before. So we are partnering our incoming kindergarten families with existing families in BRS. Some people are going to graciously host more than one family, but just that person you can pick up your phone and call or text and ask those silly questions that you probably didn't want to ask somebody, but you're really dying to know the answer to. As silly as, so they said, park in the surrounding area and walk up. Like, what does that mean? What block should I drive on? Again, all of those things that, you have those butterflies around, but also to have opportunities for families who are new to the community to meet other people, to potentially meet up before school starts, just to have those familiar faces, and begin hopefully some friendships that way as well.
Thank you, Rachel. And it's something we missed this year with our kindergarten program because of the pandemic, but it's a great idea moving forward. So thank you. Okay, so I'll turn this over to the board for any comments or questions.
So the first thing I have to say is, given that the whole entire world turned upside down for the last year plus, you guys have been busy doing a lot of really great, creative, interesting, moving forward stuff, right? They were like everything, every single thing you were saying, it was like I wanted to comment. I'm sure we all wanted to comment, but then we would be here forever. But one of the things that stands out that's part of the DEI and the SEL and Pleasantville Strong and the elementary school is helping kids have the language. Because if the kids have the language, whether it's social emotional, DEI, Pleasantville Strong, like all of that. If you have the language to express what's going on here, and for the teachers to hear it, and the teachers to have the language, all of these things that's going on in these classrooms and in the buildings, it's just going to be stronger and better because we're going to know what the kids need, how they're receiving it. Sue Lyden talking to the 8th graders, the buddy programs, the 8th graders doing stories to the elementary school, all of these different things. It's having that language to enhance and move forward. I love it. There's 1,000 other things I'd like to say, but I'll let everybody else chime in too. It's very, very impressive.
So I'm hoping the board also and the community at large saw that there were some things we pivoted on based upon information we received. Again, I'm very grateful to the board and the community for the support to be able to join Tri-States and the Metro Center, because clearly that level of guidance has been super helpful to us, and it helps outline what our trajectory needs to be moving forward. On another level, I should have included it, but it didn't involve any of us, but another partnership and community is basically the partnership between the board and PCTV and inside the Pleasantville schools, because that has been a huge window into our world. And that was a collaboration between PCTV and the board. So again, thank you.
Absolutely. No, flexible pivot. I talked with Adam today because the next Inside Pleasantville is in the works, and it's all about flexibility. I mean, the strategic plan is there, but it's interpreting it. It's how can you pivot from this to that, and you have the roadmap.
Right.
Yeah, great job, everybody. Really, it's just amazing how much we were able to accomplish. You were able to accomplish this year, considering all the other challenges that we had just getting students into classroom. So, and I know that, applying for, it wasn't just a matter of joining Tri-States and the Metro Center, putting together the application and really, a thoughtful application that got us accepted, and they're, they sound very excited to have us as part of their organizations, and are excited about what you will bring to the other members of the group as well. So congratulations to you guys for making that happen. I think it's going to be mutually beneficial for us and the other school districts in those organizations. So thank you for all of your efforts on that, because I know that was a big lift when you had a lot of other things to worry about and to consider. So thank you.
And Angela, I think it's important on behalf of all the administrators, we didn't do this alone. The heavy lifting was with the Board of Education and our superintendent lifting with us and standing next to us. You really have to have a Board of Ed and a superintendent that believes that this journey is worth the time. You set goals for 5 years from now. It's hard to commit to something next week in life, but to set goals to commit for 5 years and to stay the course and adjust the course when it needs to be adjusted, it all goes back to a Board of Ed and a superintendent who believe and stand strong on what this community needs. So we thank you all for that. This is the second time around, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey to travel on for our kids.